Depending on who you talk to, cornerback is either the most important position on the defense or the least important one, and there doesn't seem to be any in between. How you feel about the cornerback position reveals your philosophy about pass defense in football, and it's a bit of a chicken and the egg conundrum. Either you feel cornerback's the most important position, he shuts down the opposing team's number one target and gives his defense's pass rush more time to rush the quarterback. In other words, a shutdown corner makes a mediocre pass rush good. Or you believe a great pass rush speeds up the opposing quarterback, gives the secondary less time to cover, and makes a mediocre secondary better. That's the chicken or the egg conundrum. That's the two different philosophies of pass defense in the NFL. And throughout the NFC West, there are different philosophies. So with that in mind, let's rank the cornerback groups in the NFC West from the worst cornerback group to the best. I know what you're saying. The 49ers had the number one ranked pass defense last season. How can their cornerback group rank at the bottom in the NFC West? That's fair. But let me just say, this is the same cornerback group, basically, that gave up 35 touchdown passes in 2018. That was historically bad. So what changed from 2018 to 2019? The pass rush, first of all. Niners signed Nick Bosa and Dee Ford. Second, the underneath coverage in the zone defense. The Niners drafted Dre Greenlaw and signed Quan Alexander, two of the fastest linebackers in the league. All of a sudden, it became extremely difficult to throw short passes, especially to running backs, against the Niners. The Niners use zone defense most of the time, which means they believe their pass rush is more important than their corners. I mean, think of it in terms of baseball. Zone defense is like the underneath coverage is your infield. You got your corner infielders, your infielders up the middle. Those are your linebackers. That's the underneath coverage. They're all extremely important to your defense. And the outfield is the two corners and the free safety. The free safety is a center fielder. He's extremely important to your defense. The corners are the corner outfielders, left field and right field. Relatively speaking, they're your least important defenders. Coming back to football terms, not just the fact that they're often the periphery of your zone defense, they're the worst tacklers on your team. So in that sense, from the 49ers perspective, they're the least important players on your team. And the Niners have been skimping on corners forever. They haven't drafted a corner before round 3 since 2002 when they took Shante Spencer. They put all their resources into the D-line and try to find bargains at cornerback, and that has worked for them for the most part. They got Richard Sherman coming off a torn Achilles. He was terrific last year. And I would consider him the best zone corner still in the league and the smartest cornerback of all time. In zone coverage, the cornerback can look at the quarterback. He doesn't have to turn and chase a wide receiver, so he can read plays. And no one reads plays better than Richard Sherman. Just based on the alignments, the formations, and the initial route combinations, he can pretty much figure out what's coming. He could probably do that until he's 45. Then the Niners also have K'Wan Williams and Emmanuel Mosley, who are both solid in zone coverage. They also have Ahkello Witherspoon, who's interesting. They drafted him in the 3rd round, and he's had moments where he's shown that he can be a number one corner in man-to-man coverage. He's locked down Mike Evans and had good reps against Mike Thomas. Problem is he's terrible in zone coverage. Gets lost all the time. Doesn't seem to be a good fit in this defense, but might be valuable to someone else. Here's the problem, though. You can't play zone coverage all the time. I mean, sometimes you can. If the Niners get up big on a team early and they're up 20-0, they can just pretty much play zone coverage the rest of the game, and we've seen them do that, win. But when they play the best offenses in the league, the Chiefs, teams like that, the Saints, usually you're not going to blow them out. It's going to come down to a close game in the 4th quarter, and that's when defenses have to play man coverage sometimes. If the game is close late in the game, critical 3rd and 4, you can't just hang back and play zone and concede a 4-yard catch. You got to cover these receivers man-to-man and take away the openings. That's when the 49ers have gotten in trouble in the past. It doesn't happen often, but if a team can keep it close in the 4th quarter, they can exploit Richard Sherman, Emmanuel Mosley, K'Wan Williams in man-to-man coverage and crucial plays late. And that's how the Niners lost the Super Bowl. That's why I expected the Niners would draft one corner this year. But they didn't. They drafted a defensive lineman, drafted 0 corners. Because again, the 49ers have a philosophy. It's a salary-capped league. Cornerback and pass rusher, the two most expensive players on your defense. You got to pick one to go all in with, and the 49ers have picked defensive line, which means the 49ers don't really care if they have the worst cornerbacks in the division. They still have the number one pass defense. The Cardinals starting cornerbacks are Patrick Peterson and Byron Murphy. Both are former first-round picks. Murphy was a rookie last season and he struggled, but he's a talented player. I'm thinking most NFL teams would rather have him than Emmanuel Mosley. And then Patrick Peterson. Patrick Peterson is arguably the best cornerback of the 2010s, him or Richard Sherman. Peterson missed 6 games last year, played the final 10, struggled at times, but you got to remember, he plays behind a bad pass rush. The Cardinals have Chandler Jones, but not much else. They ranked 17th in sacks last season. If you put Patrick Peterson on the 49ers behind Nick Bosa and Eric Armstead and DeForest Buckner last year and Dee Ford, he'd be great. So would Byron Murphy. And if you put the Niners cornerbacks on the Cardinals behind that front seven, it would look a lot like it looked in 2018 when the Niners' pass defense was non-existent. So you got to keep in mind the context of what these cornerbacks are playing around. Patrick Peterson can play zone. He can play man. He's still one of the more athletic corners in the league. Every GM, probably even John Lynch, would take Patrick Peterson over Richard Sherman. Nothing against Richard Sherman. Again, these are the two best of their generation. So I would say it's close, but I would take the Cardinals corners over the Niners, even though the Niners corners put up better numbers last year thanks to their pass rush. The Seahawks pass rush was worse than the Cardinals last season. The Seahawks ranked 28th out of 32 teams in sacks, which means their corners had the toughest job of any corners in the NFC West. And the Seahawks corners played well. Their number one guy, Shaquille Griffin, broke up 13 passes. He's equally effective in man coverage and zone, the kind of corner the Niners don't have. They could really use a guy who's good at both, give Robert Saleh more options. The number 2 corner in Seattle is a guy named Trey Flowers, had 3 picks last season. And then the Seahawks traded this offseason a 5th-round pick to Washington for Quentin Dunbar, who had 4 picks last season. That's quite a trio. Dunbar was recently arrested. He pled not guilty. I have no idea what's going on there. Just my experience covering the NFL makes me feel like he's probably going to play next season, but I have no idea. Still, without him, Flowers and Griffin, quite a tandem, especially behind a team with no pass rush. The Rams have a totally different defensive philosophy than the 49ers. The Rams are man coverage. Niners are zone, which means the Rams take cornerback very seriously. Niners could take it or leave it. Niners prefer linebackers and safeties, defensive linemen, not the Rams. For the Rams, cornerback is the most important position on the chessboard, on the field. That's why they traded for Jalen Ramsey last year. Jalen Ramsey probably is the best corner in the league. He's elite. He's a shutdown man-to-man guy, and he's brilliant in zone coverage. He's so good, most teams just don't even try to throw his way. He's like a young Richard Sherman, but more athletic. And then on the other side of him is Troy Hill, who's extremely effective as well. Had 2 picks in 2019. So again, this is a competition the Rams want to win. They're worth nothing on defense if they don't have great corners, and they know it. It's just a difference of philosophies.